Yo, why'd we go from like cool houses like this? Like look at that archway, look at the railings, just like the, little garnishes or whatever you want to call them on the house, to this bullshit where every house looks the fucking same. Why?
Remember when I said that it felt like I was walking down something that was hidden and the animals were placed around something? Do you want to see what I'm talking about? Are you ready? The buildings were eventually absorbed by the San Diego Zoo. And this is coming straight from the San Diego History Center website. Absorbed by the zoo. Let's continue. Remember that in 1935, they shut the California Tower down, or the Museum of Us, and the public was no longer able to see inside. 2 years before that, buildings south of the El Prado were gone by 1933, besides two. So there was, in my opinion, without a doubt, a clear operation at this time to hide this park from the public, to rewrite its history and make it fit into their mainstream narrative. Because in 1923, they knocked down the Sacramento Valley building, 8 years after the exposition. This building was outdated? No. And we all know about the fire stories by now. And if you haven't, get ready. The fire stories are the nod to the hidden group that these buildings are from the old world. They were built by a previous civilization. A house fire does not burn down stone, and it doesn't burn down marble or brick. It simply doesn't get hot enough, and we have shown this. The Southern California County's building burned down in 1925, right in the middle of all of these other buildings getting knocked down. So they just randomly have a fire? Of course they do. After what we know about the fires, this is normal and acceptable? No, it's not acceptable. So they give us the fire story, and then at the exact same time, rip all these other buildings down. And then at the same time, they make one off limits for 80 years to the public. And we're just supposed to trust this story? We all understand that the hidden past is that an extremely advanced previous civilization constructed these buildings very easily. A civilization that we are not being told about. A civilization that had all of the technology that we have today and much more. They had phones, TVs, planes, trains, artificial intelligence, and much more. All of these things are being given back to us since 1776, in my opinion. If you're interested in learning more about that, we have episode 10 and 38 that talk all about this. We are being lied to about these narratives with fake characters, fake construction companies that build two massive buildings and then never build anything ever again. With zero training, of course, changing buildings' names to attempt to trip us up in the research, and that's not going to work. They repeat names with the AI-generated stories, and on and on. So, 1933, 10 years after they tore down the Sacramento Valley building, 8 years after the fire story, they tear down two more buildings at Balboa Park, the San Joaquin Valley and the Carondelet County's building. So here we are given a construction photo of the Varied Industries building, which shows us the incredible construction process. Just look at those workers go. Look at all of the equipment, the dedication, never taking breaks, working by candlelight, no distractions. It shows us all of the men. It shows us a building that's done. This thing is done. This is a completion photo. But according to the city of San Diego, this is a construction photo. I mean, this is honestly equivalent to me going into the road right now and turning around and taking a picture of my house and telling everybody that it's a construction photo. This is not a construction photo. Where is the construction? And it gets even weirder when we look at the narrative, where in the beginning of its narrative, they named it the Agriculture and Horticulture Building. And then they switched it a year after the exhibition in 1916, which is normal. No. They switch it to the Foreign and Domestic Industries Building because it's a repurposed building. It's repurposed from the old world. Because the previous civilization did not build this building to have it changed purposes over and over. They built it for a reason, and it was not to be a foreign and domestic industries building. This is the same thing where the USA is the land of the free. Yeah, They got a lot of free buildings that were located on their land in 1776. So it's getting a lot clearer now. And of course, the next sentence proves what we're saying here, that all of these buildings located in Balboa Park were found and repurposed. All of the names were switched from the original name over and over, which I believe is the case with all old world buildings. None of them were originally a bank. They weren't post offices, they weren't Capitol buildings. This is a worldwide operation, and these stories are just that. They're stories. When the name of this building has changed many times since it was found, naming it the County Fair Building, the Food and Beverage Building, and on and on. And of course, this was just your average food and beverage building over 100 years ago, where we are told that the facade looked like the entrance to a church, and this church look was reinforced because it had the appearance of a bishop in a medallion above the central door, and a cross in the starburst medallion. Okay, so this place was obviously incredible, and its original purpose is much different than what it's used for today, just like all of these other buildings. So in 1970 to 1971, they destroyed this building in a reconstruction project. And of course, the new one did not replicate the original. Now remember, World War I was in 1914. This exposition was in 1915. People were not concentrating on the narrative and all of its lies. And even if they were, how were they going to tell thousands of people about it? It just wasn't possible. So what happened to this building? Well, the people of San Diego were at a crossroads. They were in a bind with what to do with such a pathetic, temporary building, because we're always told that these buildings were just temporary, right? But they last forever if they just left them alone. With incredible architecture. What would they possibly use it for? Well, 1 year after the exposition in 1916, they built this building, and now what? The military needed the space, so the building got to stick around, where they used it as a barracks and a post office. And what do you know? This building was also damaged. The money was, of course, not enough to fix it, so it continued to deteriorate. I wonder what a lot of these wars are actually used for. They wouldn't be an operation to destroy the old world, would they? Remember when we were told that they stopped allowing the public into the California Tower in 1935? Well, the mainstream history just can't put their finger on why the Farm Bureau discontinued the use of Balboa Park for its county fair in 1931, just 4 years before the public was no longer allowed to go inside these buildings. Well, I would say that we know exactly why they didn't want to hold any county fairs here anymore at Balboa Park. And this wouldn't be an operation without a second exposition at the exact same location of Balboa Park. This one being held at the exact same year of 1935. It's incredible. Clearly they have found something major that went against their narrative, and they needed to run it back a second time. So in 1914, we get World War I. 1 year later, 1915, we get Balboa Park Exposition number 1. 1935, we get Balboa Park Exposition number 2. 1 year later, 1936, we get World War II, where they now have yet another name for this building, Building 212, used now by Red Cross, while the Navy yet again modified the interior. Are you still on the fence? Well, there wouldn't be another... No way. This is so clear at this point. The San Diego Aerospace Museum moved into the building, briefly, in September 1961, before transferring its exhibits across the street to the Electric Building in 1963, where they stayed until a fire in 1978 destroyed the building. Now, I have a lot to share, and I think we have a solid understanding at this point that the narrative surrounding Balboa Park has consistencies with what we have seen across the world.
An inspiring story, the history of...
This is so scary. So did you ever hear about the mystery of the Laredo Chapel? So to this day, and it's still on the news, they did a broadcast about this. There's a chapel that has a staircase in the church. It does not use any nails, any glue, and does not use wood from this earth. Check this out. Now, the story goes from, I think, 1887. This is a long, long time ago. There's a chapel, and there's a carpenter working on the staircase in the chapel to reach the top. It's like an atrium. And before he could finish it, he passed away. Now, the nuns in the church, what they did, they started to pray. And they prayed to St. Joseph to ask Jesus to bless the chapel and to finish the construction. Now, what happened was one day, after the 9th day of their prayers, a man came into town on a donkey and described as having a long white beard, long white hair. And he came with tools off the donkey, came to the church, and said, "I'm here to build the stairs." Now check this out. Obviously they allowed him in, but the one thing he said was, "You're not allowed, you guys have to give me privacy, and it's going to take me like a month." So they let him do his thing. They let him work. Before they could even give him payment or anything, or even like thank him, he disappeared. He didn't want anything from them. This is where it gets crazy. So what they say is that this staircase was a miracle. In like 2023, they sent researchers to look at the wood and architects to look at the structure. And it's physically impossible to create the staircase. Now, if you look at it, it's a spiral. And you know how staircases, they have posts to keep it like standing. This has no post. It's literally like a big wood staircase, like a slide. Now for 1887, it's already like suspicious. This is dead ass a miracle found here.
The history of the world is a lie, a complete fabrication, and everything we know is wrong. In the 1800s, something happened. The population was reset, and a new population began. The oldest photos are of people finding these grand cities, finding these unbelievable towns, and then passing it off as their own. Some people say they had airship travel long before we were told. And the more you look at these wildly ornate buildings, and just stunning designs, and you look at what we build now, don't you question how we used to do it? How they made it look so easy. Maybe it's not what it seems.
This is a phrase I coined when examining old photos in 2018 when I began looking at photos myself with respect to mystery history and investigation in the videos that I did on my YouTube channel called UAP, after seeing Martin Liedtke's work on his channel. Now, these skies that I called vanilla skies, I also called Niller skies. I had noticed first that the painted-on flags were atop the buildings in an obviously manipulated, hand-animated or painted depiction on a photograph. Now, these are photographs that are presented as being historic, and in many cases they're showing the old world as we are discovering on this channel. I began to see such anomalies as these, and furthermore unnaturally cropped edges, and began to realize it wasn't just overexposures of light, but purposeful film exposures or masking during darkroom development, perhaps, and other types of manipulations. Now, this can be acceptable and there can be good reasons for this, but when we're talking about supposedly historical depictions, it makes one wonder. And the purpose of
the fact that this was discovered hiding under a painting during a renovation of a cathedral in Naples says it all. Another sloppy cover-up of our true past at work. I think they tried to cover up giants and dragons, griffins, and a lot of other creatures. Yet they did such a sloppy job, they just ended up calling them mythical creatures. But isn't it odd, the Chinese zodiac has all real creatures but one. And the fact that so many of our cultures, all across our realm, share the same depictions of dragons, much like they do giants and many other creatures. These artists drew exactly what they saw. and you can still find some mud fossil remains. Like here's the Dragon Head Cave in Egypt. This world is vastly different than what we've been told it was. And why cover up dragons? It's the same reason why they lied to us about all of our history. Those unaware of their true past and their true origins are all that much easier to control. Perhaps dragons explained some of those melted castles. And just look what our old dictionary said about dragons. Now rare. And even a news story from England. This was just a few short generations ago. As they say, it only takes a few generations to completely erase our knowledge of our true history. And sloppy as it may be, they have succeeded in doing that. Question everything, friends. Until next time.
Oh my God, finally. The Child Eater Fountain in Bern, Switzerland. Finally somebody poured blood over it, like red color, so people wake the fuck up what's really going on.
Appliance features no longer sold today.